Hello there, and thanks for joining us with this episode of the GrowVC Everyone Funding Startups podcast. And I'm your host, Marcus, and today we're taking a look at the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Arizona. And I'm joined by Francine Hardaway, organizer of the Arizona Entrepreneurship Conference, as well as Valdo from GrowVC. Yeah, starting off, Francine, thanks for joining us today. Would you introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure. I'm Francine Hardaway. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I had a very large marketing and public relations company in Arizona. I sold it to Intel and went in there for a year, came back out, and have been coaching and helping and investing in startups for the past decade.
And could you describe the Arizona Entrepreneurship Conference? What should attendees expect?
What I try to do with that conference is introduce the rest of the world to Arizona and introduce Arizona to the rest of the world. And what I feel is that Arizona is a desert in more ways than one. Nobody ever notices we're here and doing things. And yet we have had Intel and Motorola and Raytheon and many other semiconductor companies here for a long time. And as a result, we have a rich engineering culture that operates off in a corner, and no one ever notices it.
And the conference supports the Opportunity Through Entrepreneurship Foundation that you've also founded. So would you tell us a little bit about that foundation?
Sure. What I try to do with the Entrepreneurship Conference is showcase the successful entrepreneurs in Arizona to some of the successful entrepreneurs and funding sources in Silicon Valley and elsewhere so that I grow the ecosystem. The money that entrepreneurs in Arizona will pay to meet each other and people from Silicon Valley goes directly into a program that I started to teach disadvantaged kids and returning felons and domestic violence victims entrepreneurship skills, because this is another passion of mine. I was a foster parent, and I noticed that my foster child, one of my foster children, dropped out of school after 8th grade and was stuck as a barista in Starbucks with a child and couldn't support a family. And another one had been to prison and came out and couldn't get a job. And yet these people, young adults, have enormous survival skills and resiliency because of their backgrounds. And I knew that if I could teach them how to run businesses, they could be successful. And that's what the Opportunity Through Entrepreneurship Foundation does. And the content that's provided to the participants in the conference, the attendees, is so valuable that they don't mind paying to hear a day of really good learning about entrepreneurship, which is something they're also interested in. It's a Robin Hood thing.
How long have you been operating in the foundation?
This is the 5th year, and we've started a coffee shop for a group of domestic violence victims that is still operating. That was in year 2. In year 3, I'm sorry, that was in year 1. In year 2, we helped some runaway teens from a runaway teen organization start a T-shirt printing shop where they sell T-shirts as fundraising things for other nonprofit organizations, and also a drop-in gallery where the runaway youth can do their art and hang it on a gallery walls, and people can come in and buy it. And some of that art is incredible. And then I've helped an autism research center get an income stream from businesses where they train some of their autistic people to work in the culinary field. So, I mean, it's a wonderful win-win for everybody. And some of the speakers at the conference have been extraordinary. I mean, we've had Chris Brogan, we've had Gary Vee. We've had Robert Scoble. This year we're having Dave McClure and Ethan Block from Flowtown, and Jeremiah Oyang and Brian Solis. And really wonderful people donate their time to come and speak to our Arizona entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I actually noticed that you had quite a diverse spread of speakers at the conference.
We have quite a diverse group of entrepreneurs, and so I try to provide something for everybody.
Yeah, that sounds very reasonable. And I was really surprised, since we've seen lots of conferences and you really had from one field to totally the opposite. Do you have some key topics this year?
Well, this year the key topic is the Great Reset. And I got that from a book by Richard Florida, which talks about which communities are going to survive the great worldwide recession and how they're going to do it. And so there's a lot of emphasis on the lean startup, which is why I'm having Dave.
I also wanted to ask you about this, since this is also the 5th time you're organizing the conference. And how has the conference developed during these last 5 years?
Well, it's developed into the best, biggest, and only really useful conference for entrepreneurs in Arizona. It now has that reputation. And I say that with great humility because, because I say it with humility. I didn't know what I was going to get into when I started it out. I just felt like I had to fund this nonprofit somehow, and I wanted to fund it through a business, and so the business is the conference. It's kind of like it's all about entrepreneurship. The conference is another one of my entrepreneurial ventures that produces help for other entrepreneurs and creates more of an Arizona entrepreneurial ecosystem, which is really what every community needs. I mean, what we need is collaboration, because that's how you make things happen. You make things happen by aggregating good people and creating an environment in which they can collaborate. Because if you do that, they all find ways to help each other. I've been studying Silicon Valley, and it's pretty interesting. Silicon Valley works by competition, yes, but it also works by collaboration. And it works by relationships and networking and people coming together and knowing and trusting each other. And, all business ultimately is a trust network, or at least I believe it is.
So, on the topic of Silicon Valley, and it's actually not that far away from Arizona, and you describe the Arizonian entrepreneurial ecosystem as a desert. So what opportunities do you see in your community?
Well, there are the obvious ones that come from the solar industry, and there are already large-scale solar operations and large-scale players in the solar industry, plus some entrepreneurial startups that are installing solar for residences and commercial facilities in Arizona. So there are both, world-class solar businesses, most of which, by the way, are owned by the Chinese, and there are local solar businesses in Arizona. Arizona also has had a commitment to biotech entrepreneurship and life sciences. And so we have a lot of translational genomics. And what I work with mostly is the software community and the internet-based community and the people around that, although we certainly work with everyone else as well, because again, everybody needs everybody else. There's hardly a business that doesn't use software. So.
And what's the mentality like there? Do people see entrepreneurship and having a startup as a viable career option?
Well, they're beginning to. And that has been my personal crusade, because Arizona has for a long time depended on the large companies like Motorola, which used to employ 35,000 people in Arizona, and Intel. Well, Motorola now